Okay. Okay, so welcome to the webinar. This is Culture Talk, and today we're going to be talking about how archetypes can help you to move a team, adapting to change and building resilience. So thank you for joining us here today. Cynthia's going to pull up the slide deck and we'll get started and dig in. Okay. Okay, so we're always excited to talk about this topic. We really love to share this work and the ideas behind it. Cynthia and I first want to just share a little bit about who we are and how we got here. How did we got to be talking about this thing called archetypes? We are officially, by way of introduction, if you haven't met us, I'm Theresa Agresta, and Cynthia is both my business partner, my co-founder at CultureTalk, and my sister. And the two of us are both students and teachers of culture, which we believe is really the ultimate organizational navigating system. But before culture became our passion, we ran a business that helped organizations and leaders to build meaningful brands. And we did that by measuring their culture. And then we let the brand story emerge from that culture. And it was a very powerful process because by helping people to uncover those deeper layers of their culture, we had such an impact that clients were asking us to come back and use that story again. They saw the power in bringing it forward when they wanted to recruit and hire, when they were bringing new people on board or trying to keep them, to retain them and engage them. And when they needed to maybe merge cultures through an acquisition or evolve and change in response to a crisis. So we were very busy. But we were also leaving work on the table because clients didn't always see the connection. They didn't always understand that that same core story, which was derived from their culture, was the foundation that they needed to build maybe a leadership development program, for example. But what we came to see was that the system that we'll share with you today, which is grounded in storytelling, can be used more broadly to address many connected business challenges. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. But for now, let's tie today's conversation to the moment that we have been living in and we're still living in.
A friend of mine from Austin, Texas, sent me the recent marquee from El Arroyo, which is the famous Tex-Mex restaurant. And boy, did it make me smile. Because this actually is exactly how my 2021 has started. It's more like 2020 and a half. And even though we've got lots of positive headlines about COVID and vaccines and, businesses starting to reopen, and even hints that we might have some kind of economic boom post-pandemic, a roaring 20s, if you will, the uncertainty about what's next continues. And the longer that we as human beings are exposed to this rapid cycle of change and uncertainty and reinvention, the more we're starting to hear about things like burnout in the workplace and employee mental health, employee wellness, and how all of this is impacting team performance and organizational culture. So we want to kick off actually with a little fun. We have a quick 3-question quiz, and this is designed to test your knowledge about the human brain and how it operates under various conditions. So please, we want you to play along, pop your answers to each of the following questions in the chat. And to make it a little bit more competitive, anybody who scores correctly on all 3 questions, we're actually going to send you a free Culture Talk for Individuals survey. So keep track of your scores. We're going to be on the honor system. And if you're already a partner with Culture Talk, we'll add another Culture Talk survey to your bank. Okay, so let's go.
Okay, let's go.
All right, question 1 has to do with our fight or flight response. The stress response can be triggered in a single instant, right? We've all heard about the amygdala. And while our brains are very sophisticated technology, how our amygdala responds hasn't changed since the beginning of time. So the question is, while we have this instantaneous fight or flight reaction, how long, what is the average response time does it take your body to return to normal and to calm down? Here are 4 choices. Is it 1 minute, 20 to 30 minutes, up to an hour, 2 or more hours?
Okay, we've got a range of different responses coming in. Some people really answering all of the different potentials there.
Yeah,
Cynthia.
right.
Everything from 1 minute to 2 hours or more.
Yeah, it's just not something we've thought about, I think. The correct answer is B. It takes 20 to 30 minutes for us to kind of recover and calm down again when we've been triggered. So anyone who got B, you're on track for a free Culture Talk survey. All right. Question number 2. All right, we just talked about kind of the immediate stress on the brain. Now let's talk about chronic stress. In which of the following ways does chronic stress affect the brain? And we have a number of choices here. I'll read them.
Okay, some answers coming in. A lot of F's on this one. A lot of people saying all of the above.
Okay. Chronic stress, it can lead to mental illness. It can change the structure of the brain. It can kill brain cells. It can shrink brain cells. It can hurt your memory. And if you guessed F, da-da-da-da, you are correct. All of the above.
All of the above. It's scary, and everybody got that right.
Everybody got that right. I think it's kind of sobering, particularly when we think about stress and our own self-care. All right, our final question. We're actually going to flip it and we're going to look at what happens when we're in the flow, when we're not stressed. How does being in the flow help us? How much more productive are people when they're in a state of flow? Are they 50% more effective, 100%, 250, or 500% more productive?
Little tougher. What do you think on that one? I see some B's and C's. Something in the neighborhood of 150 to 250, people are saying.
Okay. The survey says 500% more productive. And that's
some of that juice.
That's based on 10 years of study by the Flow Research Collective and McKinsey, that when we do get into a state of flow, wow, it's incredible. So did anybody score correctly on all 3 questions? If you did, put your name, just let us know in the chat, or you can also email me at cynthia@culturetalk.com. And again, we'll provide a link for you to take the Culture Talk for Individuals assessment. But again, this whole conversation about how we are faring in this, constant change and uncertainty environment is taking a toll. The World Health Organization actually includes burnout in its international classification of diseases. And if you look at how it describes the condition, exhaustion, depletion, mental distance, negativism, cynicism. I mean, if you are leading a team or, you're even this person, does this sound like someone who's going to be operating in the flow, who's going to be productive and engaged? Probably not.
So maybe you are the leader of your team or your company. And start putting in the chat, are you a leader? Or perhaps you're somebody that is, engaged in helping leaders. And if you think about the recent past, we didn't always think about mental health or employee well-being as part of that job. In fact, we used to draw kind of a line between work life and personal life. I know I did in my own career, and I expected the people around me to do that as well. Now that line has been eroded by technology, absolutely. We've all heard conversations and been part of this erosion as technology has made everything so seamless. But what the pandemic has really brought to light is that the line doesn't exist at all, and that we can't build workplace cultures that thrive unless we are also addressing the well-being of each person on the team. Put another way, we can't expect teams to move our strategy forward if they're dealing with, a pileup of their personal challenges that they're bringing to work each day. So today, leaders need new strategies because, based on this new expectation, to help their teams recover, realign, and then be ready for the next change because there's always one coming around the corner. So how do we make our teams feel safe and supported while also challenging them to grow and capitalizing on their strengths? Let's think about, how we effectively dig into those kind of strategies by starting with an idea that has never been more true. Everyone who's leading a team or supporting a leader, each of us are human first, which means that we also struggle with stress and reactivity and burnout. So knowing where you are, knowing the state of your own mental health is an all important first step because unfortunately or fortunately, our state of being is actually contagious, just like a virus. It's a word we've heard a lot over the past year. Something else that's contagious. Our energy and how we show up to lead affects the team, and it affects everyone around us as well. So just like a virus, one person's energy can impact an entire organizational system. We could spread good vibes, we could spread toxicity throughout the culture, especially when that vibe is coming from the leader of the organization. So it's something to really take into consideration and something, it's a huge responsibility, actually.
Wow. Theresa, I think that's true for work, and I think it's also true in our own family systems. So I almost hate to confess this, but when my kids were young and we were struggling to get out the door on time, say for a family vacation, sometimes my husband would chime in and he'd say, if the mama ain't happy, nobody's happy.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in that, and it moves smack into the work life as well, especially when the work life includes families right in the background on the Zoom screen.
Yeah, well, and I think it's a testament to just how powerful we can be with our own energy, that consciously and unconsciously we can sabotage experiences for everybody else. So, not proud of it, but I'm working on it. Here's another thing, as we're thinking about leading and teams, the pandemic has shown us the importance of emotional intelligence and practicing empathy. Being aware of each individual and what they need to feel seen, safe, and supported, that is the leadership skill of the day. So we pulled this quote, Theresa. Do you remember that article?
Yeah, the CEOs are looking for these skills from the educational system, which is so interesting because we first have to ask ourselves in our organizations, are we exhibiting these skills? Do we show empathy as leaders? Are we practicing it on our teams? We're expecting new employees to come through schools, and this is what we're asking for, but we have to provide it first in the organization.
Right. And while I think everyone's heard the term emotional intelligence, just to define it, it's really the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions as well as the emotions of others. And it's important because if we are seeing other people as individuals, because what we're learning about burnout is that it's highly personal. Think about that. While each of us may be dealing with similar challenges right now and changes, they affect us differently depending on who we are. Let's just take work from home as an example. For some, working from home completely zaps their energy, while for others, they have never felt more engaged and focused. It actually capitalizes on their strengths. But if we're going to build resilient teams, it can never be a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not going to be solved with everybody gets a day off or a happy hour. Instead, we need to focus on building resilience in each member of the team. What do they need to recognize their own triggers and redirect their own stress responses? This comes out of a new book by Jessica Malnick and Grace Trumpfeller. It's called Burnout, the Remote Worker's Biggest Opponent. And they say managers, founders, and leadership teams must understand where each team member shines and what motivates them. What I love about this is that it breaks the faulty thinking that only some people have the potential for resilience, and instead it offers us this idea that each team member can shine and that everyone can be resilient. Certified staffing professional Cindy Stradling echoes the idea that resilience is a competency that can be learned and mastered, and she identifies 3 important questions that people should be asking. What brings you down? What lifts you up? And what drives you?
You know, I love the simplicity of these questions, and they really strike me as a great alignment for the framework that we use at Culture Talk, because that, is a framework that helps people to answer these questions. So let's take a look at it. You can see that we use 12 patterns. They're called archetypes. And we didn't make this system up. It's actually based on the work of Swiss psychologist Carl Jung. So what archetypes are at their simplest level are storylines. They're human storylines. And we can all relate to them, and we probably recognize them. Just by scanning this list, you can probably pick out which each of these storylines is about and maybe which ones are strongest or resonate for you. Heroes save the day, magicians transform, revolutionaries break boundaries. We find this framework is really effective in organizations because the archetypes provide a shortcut. At their core, they help us to do things more quickly and more easily. And like we talked about earlier, they can help us do many things in a business more quickly and more easily. It helps us to understand things. And unlike other systems that put people in distinct boxes, maybe are checking a box and making us feel like we got something done, archetypes actually are more like fingerprints. They're nuanced and unique. They're deep and multi-layered. And they are human. So they are both rich and colorful, but they're also flawed and relatable. And we can use them to understand more about our own internal motivations as well as our strengths. But archetypes also have something that we call a shadow side. And because each one has a shadow, which is behaviors that may get triggered in response to stress, they exist on a continuum where our biggest strengths are really just, the shadow actually comes out of the biggest strength, and it's really just a continuum of that experience, but it might come up in a less developed way when we're reacting. So for today's conversation, we're going to be looking at these identifiable patterns to help provide us information about how to build resiliency, how to stop reacting and come from a place of strength, and where we have opportunities for growth. Cynthia and I are going to demonstrate 2 ways that this framework can be of value right now as the rapid changes that we're experiencing really continue to keep us in this place of high demand for both teams and individuals. The first thing we'll do is show you how leaders can apply archetypes to navigate change and nurture resilience on their teams. And then we're going to take a look at how archetypes can help each team member build self-awareness. which in turn is what you need to elevate team performance. So in order to do that and to have a little fun with it, we're going to revisit a classic business allegory. Our iceberg is melting. This was first released in 2005. It's a timeless tale, and it's about the change that happens with a colony of penguins. It's written by the change management guru, John Carter of the Harvard Business School. You may be familiar with this story. Maybe you've even read the book. If you've read Our Iceberg is Melting, just give a shout out. Let us know that you're familiar with this story and our penguins that we're going to introduce next. So for those of you who are not familiar, it's really quick. It's an entertaining read, and I would suggest you give it a try. Cotter and his co-author introduced this colony. We have 268 emperor penguins who are faced with a new crisis. The iceberg, where they have been living for as long as anyone can remember, is melting. And as the story unfolds, we meet penguins who have distinct personalities, who have got to pull together if they're going to avert this coming danger. And even though most of us have probably never worked with penguins, I bet you'll recognize a few of these characters from your own team or organization. And you'll be able to relate to what happens as the colony rises to the crisis and accepts the challenge to change quickly. We want to lean into this classic to uncover another dynamic as well. How each individual penguin responds in the crisis and how they're able to develop resiliency. And in doing so, they can impact what the whole colony is able to accomplish together. So Cynthia's going to give us on a little.
Yeah, let's meet the penguins. We actually want to take a look at 5 key penguin characters and the roles that they played. And we're going to look at that through the lens of archetypes. Now, each penguin is probably not just one archetype, and each of us probably has multiple archetypes that are part of our patterning. But just like people, certain penguins, certain patterns are going to be on autopilot. So we're just going to look at one core archetype for each of Cotter's characters. And before we actually name the archetype, play along with us and see if you can begin to recognize these stories and patterns by what we tell you about them. So first, meet Fred. Fred is the penguin who first discovers the impending disaster. And really, it's no wonder, because Fred is curious. And he's the one that's often wandering around the iceberg by himself. Based on some of these descriptions of Fred, what we have identified as one of his core archetypes is the explorer. Explorers are people or penguins who are tuned into what is just over the horizon. They may ask questions like Fred. Why can't anyone else see what's right ahead of us? Why can't they see what's coming? Once Fred does see the problem, he's quick to inform one of the colony leaders, and that would be Alice. Alice is known as a bird of action. She has a reputation for quickly getting things done, being quick to act, being short on words. And a core archetype we might identify for Alice is the hero. When you meet someone with the hero archetype, this is the person who makes it a point to be prepared no matter what. They're always ready for any challenge. And they also hate indecisiveness. They don't want to, spend too much time thinking and talking about things. They want to charge ahead. So maybe this is you, or maybe it's somebody you know. Alice, while she wants to, she's restraining herself from trying to push people along faster, she does know that it would be a mistake to make a move without engaging another penguin, and that is the head of the colony. And this bird is named Lewis. Lewis likes to get things done too, but he wants it to be orderly. And he wants to make sure that nobody gets left behind. Where Alice lacks patience, Lewis brings it in spades. He knows he can lead by example, keeping other birds calm along the way. These characteristics are true for people who have a high caregiver archetype. So is that something that resonates for you? As a caregiver, Lewis is able to see the potential in others and nurture it right out of them. And as he considers the dire problem of the melting iceberg, he knows that there's not one penguin that's going to be able to save them, but it will take a concerted team effort. He immediately recruits Fred and Alice to the team, and he calls them the Council of Five. And then he invites two more penguins who he believes that the team needs their unique strengths. The first penguin he invites, or I guess this is the third he invites, the fourth to the team, is Buddy. And even for other people on the team, Buddy initially looks like an odd choice. He's younger, he has no real leadership experience, and yet as the story unfolds, Buddy plays a pivotal role in bringing the entire colony on board. It is Buddy's jester archetype that contributes to his easygoingness, his popularity. It's what makes him, we sometimes think about jester as an archetype that can deliver hard truths, but do it in a way that make people feel okay so that they can be heard. And the final penguin that gets added to the team is somebody called the Professor. As his nickname suggests, the Professor hates unanswered questions. He's always distinguishing fact from opinion. This is the sage archetype at their finest. In Penguins and People, the sage forces us to slow down and to ask the right questions. So the Professor plays a role. He does two things. He's constantly addressing false rumors that are wandering around the colony. And he's also dispelling any seeds of doubt as the disaster unfolds.
Okay, so looking at this chart, we've got the same 5 patterns that we've just uncovered in our penguin team, but I bet you might know some people, maybe even you, who have these patterns in real life and at the office. So let's talk through what we can learn by understanding more about what triggers them and what helps them each to build resilience. Beginning with our explorer, who is very inclined to be on the move. For this person, the lack of freedom, whatever is causing it, is experienced as a really big challenge. When simply reacting, the explorer is likely to just simply disconnect. They tune out and you've lost them. Thinking about the hero, who is very action-oriented, when they're met with big unanswered questions, they might actually require some time to sort things out. They get triggered by becoming overly aggressive. They're not comfortable with time and they're not able to ask those deeper questions. Just like our lead penguin, Lewis, caregivers instantly recognize what each person in a setting needs. And they respond, and they respond, and they respond until they might drain their own energy in a really unhealthy way. Jesters really aren't happy with the situations that are too heavy. That might actually make them feel threatened. And so like the class clown, they sometimes crack jokes that are meant well, but they are not always received very well. And maybe you know a sage like the Professor Penguin who freezes without data. It's like an ultimate safety net. So without it, they feel naked and unprepared. And they might react by questioning everything and dragging everyone around them down. So if you know anybody like that, if you can start to relate to some of these characteristics or these members, tell us in the chat which ones jump out to you. We're going to move on to understand what happens when we intentionally motivate these same people. It's not magic, but it might feel that way when you are able to uncover this code. So let's go back to the explorer. Our explorer is actually inspired by, not afraid of, anything and everything that's new. So to tap into their resiliency, send them out as scouts to uncover new opportunities or approaches. Likewise, heroes thrive on action, and they are always ready to rise to a challenge. So when you are ready to move forward and you need to inspire the team, give the hero an impossible goal, something that just feels like a really big hill to climb, and then get out of their way. Caregivers are more deliberate than heroes, and they're thoughtful. As you said, or as we said earlier, they're reading the needs of the whole group. So if you give them the responsibility to look after others, they're going to bend over backwards to make sure that no one gets left behind. And jesters really just want everyone and everything to be okay. They want us to feel good. And they're not afraid to say hard things directly. Those are two really somewhat divergent truths about jesters. So if you engage them to deliver the bad news, things are going to go smoothly, because at the end, what they're really trying to do is help other people to accept what they have to and to make them feel good and to be okay. Now, there's no getting around the fact that sages need facts, period. So the best thing you can do to motivate them is to give them information and then give them some more information. So the truth is, in crisis, we often don't even know what questions to ask, but the sage does. And ultimately, if you engage them and ask for their help, they will actually move everyone else forward faster, even though it might feel at first like they're slowing things down.
These were the 5 characters, and without giving away all the details about the melting iceberg, we can share that it all works out for the penguins. So if you want to know more, go ahead and pick that book up. But leaders like Lewis can learn to read archetypes, and they can learn to see their team members through archetypes. And in that way, tap into their motivation, help them manage their shadow behavior, and help them step up in their strengths in resilient ways. We call this ability to read and reframe motivations in self and others narrative intelligence. And individual team members can also have narrative intelligence, and they can use it to change their experiences. So here's another quote that says that actually individually our ability to adapt to change and to engage is really all about self-awareness and our own personal well-being. We need to understand our own triggers, and we need to understand how to tap into our strengths. I want to share briefly a program that we launched last year called Flip the Switch, where leaders could take the archetypes right into their team and help the team imagine kind of what's changing for them and how they need to manage the changes that are happening for them. And I want to introduce you to a team on which there was an explorer. So Fred, our penguin, was an explorer, but now I want you to meet Diego. Diego is a mid-level project manager for a learning development company, and he is a high explorer. So explorer is one of his archetypes. And here's a fuller look at the strengths and shadows of the explorer pattern. Again, this is the person that's curious and open, pushing new boundaries, kind of someone who thinks on their feet. But when they show up in shadow, it's that same movement that can make them sort of disappear and lack a little bit of accountability. So Diego, again, has high explorer. And as he got into this program with his company, one of the things in the Flip the Switch is first to identify work has changed. It's been flipped on its head. And for Diego, what specifically changed for him and how well is that going for him? So some of the key ways he changed, he was a commuter and now he's working from home. And you can see by some of the scores here that working from home is not something he's really enjoying. You can also see that his hours have gotten a little bit more flexible than they used to be. And that's something that as an explorer, he really enjoys. Meetings are all online now. That seems to be something he can handle. And probably the biggest thing is that his company did a lot of in-person class delivery, and they are moving towards an all-digital delivery, which Diego absolutely loves. So we're going to take a quick look at the strengths and shadows of Diego's Explorer, kind of how it used to work, and then how does it work now that he's looking at it in his current work experience. So it used to be that when Diego was leaning into his strengths as an explorer, he was the guy bringing in all the new ideas. He was able to kind of adapt quickly, to think on his feet, and even in live situations, probably have a lot of flexibility in designing learning experiences. But like explore patterns are likely to do, deadlines, boredom, and focus, these can be challenging things and things that Diego say were challenging for him. But now that he's really thinking about, okay, now I'm working from home and doing some other things, doing some different things, what he's discovering is that, you know what, on his team, he's one of the best at finding digital solutions. And he's talking about it. He's excited about it. And he's actually feels more focused in the sense that flexibility and having that flexibility in his schedule works well for how he thinks. He's still struggling with follow through and execution, and that might have become more of a challenge at home. He's got other distractions at home, and he still harbors a little bit of resentment when someone calls him out on his accountability. So the final part of that experience, now that Diego has developed some self-awareness about his explorer, is he's noticing that there are certain things he can do to contribute in really big ways to the learning and development team. He can lead the charge on technology. He could also share strategies about how does he deal with change so that other people who are struggling might learn something. And he also thinks that maybe he could organize some kind of team building adventure that was outdoors and really help the team connect in a new way. He also identified a couple things that he needs as an explorer, and so he's working with his leader, his manager, on this. He said, I might need some one-on-one coaching. I need some weekly check-ins. I need some structure to help me keep focused. And along with that, it'd be great if I had some kind of incentive when the team does win and I've been a contributor. And finally, he's asked for an assignment that maybe is a little less structured, that allows him to really revel in his explorer. So just another example on an individual level of how self-awareness can really lead to personal growth and resilience.
Okay, so we've shared two ways that archetypes can be applied. And in fact, there are many additional ways in which this same thinking and this same measurement and understanding of who you are as an individual and how you show up can really help a team to be more successful across a number of different initiatives. So in the Culture Talk system, you can use archetypes and a measurement of how an individual scores to help recruit and strengthen the right people, bring them in to the team and recognize how they're going to be additive, how they're going to build on and add to the skills and the the group that's already there. Right from the interview stage, we can really conduct more effective interviews. For instance, imagine interviewing Diego if you knew that he was an explorer archetype. How might you hear him differently? What different kinds of questions might you ask if you had an understanding of who he was as an individual and as a human being? So as you interview him, bring him on board, and continue to find ways to engage Diego, having that information can really be a shortcut, as we talked about earlier. We know that in today's digital world, this idea of a personal brand is also really important, because whether or not somebody is out there on the front lines of your organization, they are on social media. They are sharing things that are being seen in a way that is more visible than it ever was before. So that tie back to who you are and who you are in context with the organization, what your personal brand is another opportunity that can be fully developed when you understand your archetype patterns. You've already seen some look at coaching and developing people. Leadership development, certainly really important at every step along the way. But how do we also move someone through a career? How do we help them to recognize what some of their stumbling blocks are, like those triggers that we looked at before, so that we can clear them out of the way and help someone come to self-awareness about how to move their own performance to the next level. And then regarding the idea of inclusion, collaboration, we know that inclusion leads to much better collaboration, gets people into the flow, taps into that 500% we're looking for, and really helps to minimize conflict within people on teams. So we didn't talk much about the conflict the penguins experienced, but if you read the book, you'll see there were obstacles to overcome on their way to success. And a lot of those, as we often have with people, show up in the form of how people rub each other the wrong way. So helping people to understand each other and take ownership of that can be a really fantastic tool as well. We referenced when we started this idea that looking at organizational culture was where Cynthia and I came in with this work. And what we still do today and have as part of the CultureTalk system is a separate look at how an organization scores and what kind of archetype profile is being articulated through the culture at the organization as a whole. And these are some of the things that we can do once we understand that. First and foremost, going back to the roots, is the brand. Whether that brand is external and we're talking to people who we're looking to bring on as clients or customers of our company, or maybe these are the constituents of a not-for-profit, we can definitely form a much more authentic and connected brand when we understand what's happening in the culture. Then we take that same information and we use it for the employment brand to attract the right talent and to motivate the people as a team. So both public facing and employment brands. When we need to shift or change the culture, just like the penguins did, we need to evolve. So understanding where we're going to really requires us to first measure where are we starting from, understanding what that culture, what's happening in that culture, both from a strength and a shadow perspective. That gives us a real leg up when we use acquisitions perhaps as a growth strategy, which we see many, many organizations doing today. So if you're integrating cultures and you're really trying to minimize the risk that come with bringing people together, we can look at what's happening on both teams and create a much more effective merger. And then obviously we have subcultures, and the larger the organization gets, the more we see this. The larger a team grows, there might be other teams that they find themselves in conflict with, other locations within the same organization. So identifying subcultures and being able to enhance the dynamics between teams is another way in which this whole thought around archetype and archetype profile can take us. So what is CultureTalk? CultureTalk is essentially this framework of archetypes. And what it can do is help to close the gaps. You've seen both the individual and the organizational side. And it's a system that brings together both sides of that equation by using one common language and closing gaps between individual potential, team performance, and the organizational strategy. So we begin by measuring and defining me, who am I, we on our own little team, and us, the whole larger, bigger culture. And we use that same language to talk about each component of that. And then we use those stories as the framework for developing people and teams and brands and really enhancing our shared cultures. So this is a full thought, and the platform includes assessment tools and coaching and consulting protocols, both for individuals and for groups. And we'll share a little bit more about you now about the system itself. So you can see that to do that, we have 2 validated assessments. We have a robust library of workshops and facilitation materials, as well as pre-designed coaching guides and handouts and things that you can bring directly to clients. And we also have our signature certification program. So we really appreciate you being with us today. And if you're ready to begin employing some of this thinking and putting it into action, and we have to believe that you are here for a reason, then I'm excited to share that we've got some exciting updates to this program and a new session that is launching soon. So what's included in the CultureTalk certification? So this is the way it works. We have 8 weekly classes that run for 2 hours each, all done on Zoom. We have many different program materials that will enhance your understanding, but also live on with you as you begin to employ this work for your own company or clients. So there's a lot of materials that can help you to really sell and also run your engagements. We offer a 3-month membership in our international partner community, and this work really has been attracting people from all over the world. It's really exciting to see the exchanges and the learning and the growth that's happening there. As I mentioned, you have access to 2 baseline culture assessments, one for individuals and one for organizations. And those are the foundation that you use to build strategies around many, many different types of engagements, depending on where your work is taking you. So those are wholesale pricing on those assessments and the ability to immediately bring them into your business and to help you to grow and to grow your revenue as well as your client base. We can't emphasize enough how you will get to know and develop relationships through the community. This is a look at one of our many community meetings where collaborations are bringing people together across many different disciplines. We have HR professionals, branding professionals, in-house trainers, coaches, people with expertise in customer experience and change management, working right alongside folks that are really diving into the diversity and inclusion conversation. So we're really cross-pollinating a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of learning as well as sharing of opportunity that's happening across the world. We've certified an international community, and you can learn more about these folks. We've got them listed on our website.
Some of them are here and they could pop their name in chat, identify
if you're
yourself.
here and part of the community, absolutely. Let people know who you are. We encourage you always to connect with the CultureTalk certified partners. And this is what you get when you become part of that community and you join us as a CultureTalk certified partner. We have a suite of ready-to-go tools and materials we've been telling you about. As consultants, because we came from a consulting background, we understand that really you have to be able to grow your business. And in order to do that, we want to provide you things that will help you to sell and things that will help you to deliver. We want to make it easy for you. And in times of crisis like today, you need additional materials, new materials that will help to guide organizations and open new ideas and new thinking. And so the work that we do at CultureTalk is constantly growing. The body of material that's available to you is constantly growing. It'll let you turn culture into a strategic business lever that'll move teams forward. I think our certified partners say it best. So here we're sharing a few of the ideas around the ahas that they have. I am never more pleased than when the phone rings and one of our partners shares with me the outcomes of their engagement, particularly their first engagement. When they come back and the most common thing I hear is, you wouldn't believe how easy it was.
Right.
And that's an experience that they have over and over again. I think it goes back to the fact that we didn't make this work up. We are literally applying a system that is very human, very real, and very easy. So we have some exciting news to share with you today. Part of the CultureTalk certification is our brand new, just about to be launched, Introduction to Archetypes course. And this 7-video mini course will walk you through all 12 archetypes as you build your understanding of the framework and how it applies to individuals. And it will help you to validate the results of your own CultureTalk survey and build your own profile, which is the first step in understanding how the thinking applies to leaders and teams and brands and clients. So when you register for certification, you will get this course. It's a $197 value, and it's included in the cost of your registration. You'll have almost 2 weeks to dig into the material and develop your very first course assignment so that on day 1 of certification, you'll hit the ground running with your own introduction of yourself through your archetypal profile. So we get you right into the material. After you complete the whole certification program, you will be welcomed into the community with a 3-month Welcome to CultureTalk launch package. And this includes membership in the international partner community. We have monthly calls where, again, we're really engaged, learning new material, sharing ideas, and lots of opportunities to collaborate. You'll have a package of surveys and preferred pricing on surveys during that starter period, as well as in-depth coaching sessions to help you make sure you're going to be successful. Again, going back to knowing that we're successful when our partners are successful. You may have noticed that we have people coming from all over the world, and so we've designed the certification with 2 different times. Both of them are going to be on April 6th. The next start is April 6th. They'll run for 8 consecutive Tuesdays. One's going to start at 10 a.m. Eastern time, which is New York if you're outside the US. And the other will start at 5 p.m. Eastern. So 2 different times to help make it easier for people to come. I'll be facilitating the session that begins at 10, and Cynthia is going to facilitate the one that begins at 5 p.m. And for a little extra incentive to help you make a decision, if you act quickly and register by March 31st, we'll throw in a copy of our Iceberg is Melting. I think it's something that's, regardless if you have seen it before, it's a fantastic book to have in your library. So register quickly. You can do that at getcertified.culturetalk.com. And there you'll also find a lot of information about the program. We're so confident that this is a solid program that delivers results that we're offering a 100% satisfaction money-back guarantee. So if you come to 2 sessions and do your homework and give it a try, and you find that the material is really not a good match for you, then we will refund 100% of your registration fee.
You can't lose.
Can't lose. That's right. We have limited space. We try and keep these cohorts really tightly focused. You'll really get to know the people that are coming through with you. You'll feel like you've made friends. And so for that reason, we have only 10 spaces left in these upcoming segments.
$997, $2,000.
Yes.
Correct. Yep. So if you have questions I'm happy to hop on a quick Zoom with you. Cynthia is going to post into the chat a link to my calendar so that you can go ahead and grab a time to have a conversation. If you're ready to join us, the place where you can do that is getcertified.culturetalk.com. And again, our next session begins on April 6th in just under 2 weeks. So we'd like to just pause here and open it up for questions. If you've got questions about the archetypes and the information that we shared, the approaches and the ideas, how to really think about teams and resilience, this is a great time to share those, and we're happy to stick around and have a conversation. If you have questions about the certification program, we're happy to provide our view on it, and then welcome anyone who's gone through the program to also share what your experience has been.
Can I jump ahead and say something, Theresa?
Please.
Yeah. Hi, Cynthia. So
Hi.
I just finished the course on Wednesday. I had several misgivings. One was I was taking a 9-month program at the time, still am, a 2-month program that I was just beginning, and then to start this one a month, to make it a third program. Well, I was also virtually schooling my kids here at home and my full-time job where I'm a consultant working from home. And all that would say, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I had a hunch and I took a leap of faith. The program served me well, extremely well. And it was immediately impactful to me as an individual. I did the assessment myself, and it was very revealing. I didn't like some of the things I saw. I love some of the other things I saw, but it was a big aha moment for how I was being received and how I was receiving others. And the other immediate impact in the household was I had 3 free assessments to use, and one of the homework exercises was to look at someone else, have them do the assessment, and then see where you matched up. I did it with my wife, and that was an aha moment, and so we still are debriefing on that, and she understands me a little better now, and I her. So I think we zoomed the cross marriage counseling in that one assessment.
Yeah, we didn't mention marriage counseling, but that's a good point.
So, or partner, or relationship, or team member, or co-owner relationships. The other thing is the archetypes. It's a different language, but it's a very familiar language in terms of the concepts that we use every day, and the experiences and situations that we find ourselves in. And when I thought about the price too. Wow, I just spent on these other courses? Do I have the money or time, or do I want to invest in something I don't know anything about? It's well worth the investment times 10 when you think about the community that I've developed with my colleagues during the course, the instrument that I have now to use in my work, the amount of time they put in, and that entire deck of resources on the website. It's time, and I'm not exaggerating, and I don't exaggerate. It's times 10 the cost, and they're always evolving and updating. So it's not a static deck or series of resources. So that's my 100 cents for how I.
Thank you so much.
So I used to be called certifiable. Now I'm certified.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alfred.
Yeah, and I'll just shout out some answers to some group questions. Right now, we only have the April sessions announced. So that's the April-May session. We will have another session later in the year. But I also popped Theresa's calendar link in the chat. So if you want to have a one-on-one and talk about how you might apply this system, and if anybody's emailing me, I didn't catch if anybody actually won our little contest. So I'm here to give out some free surveys if we had some good awareness about our brains.
Yeah. Any other questions about the content from today or the certification?
I don't have a question. This is Patricia, and I would have to echo the endorsement. It's best money I've spent. I'm just really very pleased with being a certified partner and have found it to be remarkable and very useful. I am actually co-teaching a course with my brother, and having had him do the individual assessment, it's made things a lot easier. So it's just really excellent work, and certainly worth whatever the investment is, both in time and cost. It's just so worth it. That's all I can say. So worth it. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patricia.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for hanging out till the end. We will be sending out a recording tomorrow, I think, hopefully. Jill, we can't wait to have you in the course. I noticed some people who are already signed up for this session are here as well. And so more to follow.
We also have a replay of this webinar this evening at 5. So if there's somebody that you think would benefit from hearing this message, then we'd ask you to invite them. And again, just let us know. We're happy to send out an opportunity to join the 5 o'clock session. So particularly if you have a client that you're working with who, you want to open their ears to some ways that their team might be able to benefit from this thinking, let them know about the 5 o'clock version of this same program.
And thank you. Thanks for joining us. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Have fun, you two.
You too.
See you later.
Bye.
And I have to catch up with you, Cynthia, so talk later.
Yes, I know. Look forward
Goodbye.
to it.